What's up, everyone? Hope you have your coffee. It's going to be a really quick episode. We're going to talk about how to configure your VBA or Visual Basic for Applications editor in 5 easy steps. So this is going to be focused for Access. VBA is actually the back-end language for lots of Office products, but we're going to go on Access because, believe it or not, it's actually easier to learn VBA, I think, in Access than other Office applications. So how do you get to your VBA editor? That's the first thing we need to check. So over here, oops, sorry, let me go to my thing. So if you're in Access, you go to Database Tools, click the Visual Basic button, bam, you're in, right? Now it's going to be really blank and kind of confusing at first, no big deal. We're going to hook this sucker up. So the first thing you want to do when you're setting up your environment is disable auto syntax check and enable require variable declaration. So I am going to explain why we want to do that. So how do we do that? First, we go to Tools, we go to Options, we uncheck Auto Syntax Check, and then we check Require Variable Declaration. Now, why do you want to do that? So Auto Syntax Check, if you have that enabled, then every time you have basically an error in your syntax as you're typing, you're going to get this pop-up window saying you have an error, and it is the most annoying thing you will ever experience in your life. And after about the 5th or 6th time doing it within the course of 10 or 15 seconds, you're going to want to punch your monitor. So you want to disable that. The require variable declaration is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap back over here to this, and I'm going to kind of give you an example. So how do you start code in VBA? You go to this little button here, and you go Module. Now we have this module. Now without the option to require variable declaration, this line will be missing. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'll show you. So let's say we're going to type a module called test code. And then we're going to make a variable, and if you don't know what a variable is, don't worry about it, but we're going to make a variable called x as a long integer. Now let's say I'm typing some code, yada, 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 and I do something like this. For some reason, I misspell X and I make it a double X. Now, if you do not have option explicit up here, well then Access is going to assume, the VBA editor is going to assume that XX is a new variable. And when you have pages and pages and hundreds of pages of code and you misspell a weird variable name, then it may be really hard to find that. So you don't want that. You want to have the VBA editor make you declare your variables so that you can avoid having that instance where you're typing along and you happen to misspell XX equals 5 and you don't realize it and you've got hundreds and hundreds of lines and it's really hard to troubleshoot. So you want those two options enabled. And again, it's Tools, Options, Disable Auto Syntax Check, Enable Require Variable Declaration. Okay, now, what are the next steps? That's too easy. Set up your editor format. This will make life much simpler. So how do you do that? You go to Tools. You go to Tools, Options, Editor Format, and there we have it. Now on this screen, I've shown how I have it set up. You can play around with your options, and the ones you really want to focus on are your normal text, your syntax error text, your comment, keyword, and identifier text. Now on my editor, I've made this format a little bit larger so you guys can see it on the screen, right? If you're streaming, or sorry, not streaming, watching on YouTube. But I went to normal text and I said, okay, foreground white, background black. And then I did syntax error text is red. Then I did comment text, keyword text, and identifier text. So how does that look as we're coding? So let's do something here. I'm going to save this module. Okay, so if I do a variable declaration, right, it's going to come up as yellow, and then my keywords are coming up as kind of like a cyan. And then let's say I do an error, right? So I intentionally did an error. Notice I did not get a pop-up because I've disabled that auto syntax check, but I do get red text, so I know to look for that later. That's bad. And then when I'm normally typing something, the normal text will be white. So let's say I wanted to do a message box. You'll notice that message box is, again, an identifier or a keyword. or an identifier rather, and then hello world comes up in white, so that's good. And then a comment is just something that will not be executed in code. So, okay, awesome. That comes up as a lime green, so it's easy to pick out what's a comment, what's actual code. Pretty simple, huh? And that's pretty much it. We're almost done. Okay, next you want to go see the edit toolbar. Now this one actually took me a while to figure out, and it is really important for one or two reasons, but you want to go to View, Toolbars, make sure Edit is checked, and you're going to get this guy over here. You can dock, I like to put him in line so that my editor, I have as much room as possible for. Let me see if I can squeeze him in there. There we go. Now, this guy has several useful functions, but one of them is your bulk commenting block, because VBA does not have a native way to block comment like other languages. So let's say if I wanted to comment out multiple lines, I would have to put a single quote in front of one, which is really annoying. I don't have the option to bulk comment. However, I can do it. How did I get into insert mode? I can do it if I just highlight, do this, and then hit the bulk comment. There you go. Now everything's commented, everything's uncommented, etc. Very, very useful. The last one is View Immediate Window. Let's jump back over to the editor format. You want to make sure View Immediate Window is down here, and it will, let me move myself here. Boop, boop, boop. This is your immediate window here. This guy will become your best friend. Trust me, as you start to code, you will always, this is your best buddy. And that is it. That is how you configure your VBA editor. If you like this channel, please consider subscribing, like the video, comment if you have any questions. I try to get to the questions. We're going to be diving down into VBA very soon on this channel, and so that's where we really start to unlock the power of Access. Thanks so much. Have a great day.